Peace, peace, peace. So I got some profound insight. That's something that I want to share with y'all. I'll be ready to be blown away. Let me set this phone up. Okay, bam. So I was, I think, after the previous video that I did earlier, I got some amazing insight or enlightened. I got enlightened. Let me enlighten you. So here, peep this, right? So I noticed how a wounded, how can I say this? A wounded, let's say our women being, before they came into their womanhood, how they were first little girls, princesses. So being whatever their experiences was and how they developed their emotional resonance or intelligence or, that first started with mama in the womb, right? And what I mean by that is like, we genetically, ancestrally are passed down spiritually. We learn our emotions from our mother, beginning in the womb. And this integrates into our reality or our experience as we become more aware or unconsciously not realizing how these experiences emotionally, spiritually, mentally are processed and stored in our bodies. So that being said, all of us have learned, I use this term like the mother being the first teacher because she helps us develop everything. Or womb is where our minds begin. So just think for a moment or ponder on how it is we have developed our own emotional resonance or our everything. Now, this is gonna go a little deep. Earlier, as I'm watching and observing, the princess, I can tell when she gets a little irritable when she needs a nap. She immediately calls out, mama, mommy, and it gets so repetitive to where I ask myself, like, why is this, becoming irritable, or why do I feel like, is she really just simply expressing herself? So where I'm getting at this is not to point the finger out what she's doing is bad, good, but it's simply just an expression of naturally. And watch what I say. Think about some may call it separation anxiety. Or I would like to say the disconnect we have had from not only our mothers, whatever our experiences was traumatically, but also the disconnect from source, the divine mother. And what I came to the awareness of is how not only we have this emotional cord, or what we don't see, this emotional connection we have created through our own experience with our mothers, or with the women who reflect first the feminine principles and both operated that through their actions. So whether that be in a shadow aspect, whether it be in a wounded aspect, projection, fears, we have learned those things. And as healers or shadow workers or people who are aware of how this healing and how this wounding has regenerated through psych loops, and how healing, and it's not popularized, but now that you see that a lot of these spiritual things are popularized or a big theme now. But in that is the authenticity of all of this, because again, as I was observing my own emotions and see why she was doing that, I was like, wow, hold on, it's something to learn from this. And what I got is that when we were in our mother's womb, our mother was all that we knew. Our mother was help aiding in our arrival here. And that being said, however that experiences was being programmed emotionally, mentally, spiritually, physically, well, before we arrived here physically, in our DNA structure. So you're like, what is he talking about? If it doesn't resonate, let it fly. For those of you that are aware, you're going to see why and how vital this healing or enlightenment or awakening journey is, to why it is the matriarchal is so significant, or the feminine principles which everything deprived from or was created from, or the prime. When you look up the etymology of prime, primordial is the beginning. So that being said, I was sitting here observing as she was laying down. I put on classical music, and she literally said mommy for like probably 10-15 minutes, and I was just like, can you just say daddy one time? But it wasn't just so much of that. I realized globally humanity have ripped away, devalued the woman, the feminine principles which are now being restored, have ripped away everything that why the woman is so significant. And this goes back to the origins of everything, because that's also, I believe that's what prime also means too, origins, the origins of everything. And that being said, when you look at the spectrum of light or the darkness, everything comes from the dark into the light. So that being said, it's the awareness on how the focus has been so much on wounding, preying on the woundings, not just the women, but at first they were princesses, they were little girls. So this is where the divine mother comes in, as in her being, her presence, her essence, her everything being restored. And that divine mother is an aspect of ourselves and divine father, because when I speak about separation anxiety, because I tell you separation is illusion, but the disconnect, I'll use that disconnect. So when I say separation anxiety, think about how we have been so wounded, because Spirit was like, it's not the outer wounds that people see, it's the inner wounds that we ignore. And I was like, wow. And those inner wounds with our women especially have been so buried or covered up through so many generations, through eons, so much so that imagine, it's like that of a phoenix. It's like, imagine that you've done everything to try to destroy a people and or energy, only for it to resurface and come back as powerful as it was before. This is why you're seeing so much of why women will come into a power and enter their own inner power, and why you are needed, mothers. Whether you are a mother or not, you still are a mother in the spirit, metaphysically speaking, because the divine mother still sees you as a mother, because you're a mother to those who enter your life. You carry a mother energy. So that being said, you've had separation anxiety, literally meaning if you didn't have the best experience growing up with your mother, that energetic cord, that emotional cord, that spiritual cord that you don't see cannot be hidden any longer. Because that darkness that you're running from, that darkness that you were birthed from, because you being the light in your mother's womb in the darkness, it was purposely, your purpose is to come here and heal and acknowledge that. The things that she refuses to see and continue to ignore. That goes for everyone, even men such as myself. I had to get to that place where I could no longer ignore the dysfunctionality that really was your mother and our mothers disconnect to source, to the spiritual, further distance them from themselves. And this is why you see how energetically I express, and like the elder sister Myra was speaking about, how the energy, when you look at the daughter, father, mother, son, what's so vital about this is how when the father aspect was removed, representing the protector and keeping everything grounded and structured, the mother began to smother the son, which didn't allow him to come into his own power to protect the future mothers, which were the daughters. And so that also made the mother push the daughter out. So that's the separation anxiety, or the disconnect. That's where the disconnect began, to where we're recovering now inside. And this is why a lot of you are going through so much of a karmic cycle, or clearing karma, that which so vital from the matriarchal, because everything began with the matriarchal to give birth to the patriarchal. So the thing about why the patriarchal was so significant, but people want to separate it so much. Daughter's taking a nap. Has a lot to do with, if we don't acknowledge the dysfunctionality with the patriarchal, well, what first gave the dysfunction and the imbalance to that? You got to look at the matriarchal. No matter how we want to see it. This is why I always tell people, when you come on this channel, you're going to get activated, or you're going to be faced to see yourself, because I'm only a reflection. And also, it's accountability over here. You know, because the Divine Mother also, see, that's what's being restored, because we all have been affected by the distortion, by the false narrative, by all the false illusions that we were given by the mothers who were wounded, by the fathers who were wounded, that then gave birth to future sons and daughters who reflected and carried the same energies that they did, the same generational curses, until we realized that not only did we carry those generational curses and we're going through those loops, but as the present moment is a gift, that's the beauty in seeing that in that moment you are the gift. So no longer will you carry the curses. So that's the thing that a lot of us from a spiritual perspective are healing. And that separation anxiety is also connected to abandonment issues. And so what I'm getting on with the abandonment issue is like, how that is connected is that the abandonment that our mothers went through, because we have been so focused on the physical aspect, it's not just so much physical, someone not being there, it's also connects to the fact of the abandoning of self, the authentic self, the higher self, the inner child, basically the essence. So in abandoning and the disconnect from, you know, the higher awareness of what we're here to do, we have to go through the darkness. We have to see the shadow. We have to see the same fears that our mothers had to run away from, and our fathers. So when the fathers, this illusion of, oh, you got to be working and doing all that stuff was strategically or strategized or purposely put there systematically, psychologically, to keep people divided, keep themselves disconnected. Because if you don't have human experiences, if you don't have experiences with people, in a way, it's a balance. Because not only do you have to face yourself, but you have to also face these people, which, how would you know what it is to learn about yourself if you don't interact with something that reflects you, that reflects your wounding, that reflects your beauty, your greatness, and all things that are not so pretty? How would you know what it is how would you have known what it is not to be embraced if you don't know what it is to embrace yourself in a way? That separation anxiety, that disconnect from, karmically experiencing these connections and relationships only to find yourself again, because we've all were lost. We've all have been disconnected, only to now reconnect with the essence of ourselves. So a lot of us were seeking external validation, acceptance, and all these things, which really go back to the woundings and the inner wounds that not only our mothers passed down generationally, that again were affected both by men and women, because when the father was removed, the protection in a sense physically was removed, but the spiritual protection was still always there. But as women strayed away and became more focused on trying to take care of everything, they became disconnected from their true essence or the spiritual essence of who they are. See where I'm getting at? So when she isn't safe and feels secure in her femininity, this opposition to that, or their response to that, is an imbalance or an insecurity or unstableness emotionally, spiritually, and then comes into the physical, which creates an imbalance globally, in humanity, in everything that you see now. So that being said, that anxiety separation, we all have that separation of anxiety or disconnect from self or source, is what our women now are reconnecting to, which is their intuition, which is their natural gifts, or people may call spiritual gifts, which really is natural, because this has always been in their So this has always been a part of their genetic makeup or experience. Just think about, again, the separation anxiety is the disconnect that our mothers have had, and they haven't known it unconsciously. But subconsciously, when you look at the word sub, I always tell people like submarine waters. So the subconscious mind, again, these things are resurfacing. The subconscious mind is like the darkness. The conscious is what you see in the light. So if you can look at the feminine principles of everything, the subconscious mind would be really representing the feminine, and the conscious, from my perception, would represent the light, the masculine. So, and what's happening is, as our women now heal internally their wounds and start to focus more on their inner wounds, this will reflect outwardly in your experience, meaning that it's not going to look so pretty because we've been so far away from this, people. Our women have been so disconnected to their princesses, their inner child, their everything, their innocence. So if we as men or people or society has been trying to devalue that, in every way, to try to continue to not allow them to heal, or to keep them from being that lioness, that fierce warrior, that in their natural element. Because the feminine energy we all carry is ever changing. To even question the feminine is utterly stupid. It's ignorant, because it's always changing like you are. So think about over time how we have trying to keep women doing the same thing, keep men doing the same thing. This awakening is to shatter that illusion of that. Now, if you haven't felt safe, men haven't felt safe. If mama hasn't felt safe, her sons don't feel safe. And when you see society and when you see what's going on, and you see how you're seeing fighting on social media, all these things that we thought that were normal, has subconsciously at that moment taken over our reality. So as you start to heal, you no longer resonate with stuff like that, because it's not who you truly are as a compassionate, kind, loving being. So of course the world is going to make you out to be that, no matter how much you change or evolve. They're going to perceive or continuously try to project their subconscious fears or insecurities or whatever they're dealing with onto you, because it happened to them. So when you're coming into this awareness consciously, your body is going to want not only just your physical, because it's like, imagine it's happening backwards, but really we're moving forward. So if the princesses haven't been embraced, which reflects the mother, these fathers also, such as myself, have been affected by this, which was a son at one point in time. So this goes back to the divine mother, who is restoring all these things energetically. How can you restore something? You have to see where the rust, you have to see where the issues in the tissue, you have to see where the things that have caused this these things to operate a certain way. The behaviors, the patterns. How can you change that? You have to see it within self. You have to see it. How can you create the change? We always say, well, you got to be it. Well, how many people are really being the change rather than trying to create it? Because in being it, you have to create it. And even creating, you have to be it. So it's a polarity to it. So again, speaking about this separation anxiety or this disconnection we have had from ourselves, that's why certain awakenings or enlightenments or insight or whatever you want to call it, or spiritual ass whoopings, like I say, come like that. Because we're forced to see beyond the veil, and the veil has already been lifted. So the more you are aligned with your purpose and coming into that, it becomes easy. The more you're not, it's a dis-ease or discomfort. Your life will reflect that. You keep getting these signs and synchronicities, and this is why, again, a lot of us, I see now, even with the people in my life, is how a lot of what is servicing is so centered around the matriarchal or the mother. Because at a point of time, you have to see how this is going to be so amazing. At a point in time, the focus was just on the father and the daughter. Because you have to see how religion in itself, or these archetypes, have been used in a way for women just to focus solely on an external father for fulfillment, and not relying on their internal mother. Because you have an internal mother and father, which is that princess and that son that you have been neglecting. Meaning that we all have an aspect of ourselves. These energies represent feminine and masculine principles. So what a part of you have felt neglected? So what if I said those connections with karmically, where people wasn't in your life or certain things had to happen, had to happen only for you to see yourself, only for you to create a different narrative. That's what generational curse breaking is. For you to come into this awareness, for you to shift the narrative, the environment. What are you running from in that environment that you know you need to see? What is that? Where is there to see in the darkness? Because people are like, oh, this person left. They did this one in my darkest moments. Okay, had they not left, how would you have seen yourself? So this separation anxiety or the disconnect that has happened, which all of us have been affected by, whether it be by our father and our mothers, is actually reflecting back to us our inner wounds that we are running from, that we need to embrace, because a lot of us haven't been embraced by our mother, by our fathers. So that is a guide emotionally, spiritually, mentally, physically to ourselves. And that's how we heal those abandonment issues. So with that being said, it's like seeing how the princess was calling out for her mother. I was like, wow, some of us have been calling out for our mothers our whole life. No matter what relationship you've been in, your internal mother, your internal father, the little boy and little girl has been calling out to you. But due to the norm of trying to get our mothers and fathers or people who represented that archetype in our life to see us, when in reality they don't see in themselves. We're trying to get them to see, hey, can you see me? Acknowledge me. And in reality, do you see you? Do you see that they are a reflection of what you feel they don't see? Is what you need to see internally. It's what you're running from internally. How can you counter that? And so that comes with distancing yourself. That comes with being with self. That comes with, some may say, isolation or seclusion. Because these things then we don't see so much because we've been around people so much to where we don't even know what it is to be ourselves without them. We don't know what it is to experience our own heartbeat, our own everything without them. And so this is why you see so much of an emotional attachment, which creates suffering with fathers and mothers, because their own disconnect they had from their mothers and fathers and so forth creates this anxiety, or creates this disconnect within self, and they don't realize that their disconnect within self will actually come out and projected onto that child or you, or has been projected onto you, to actually see that they're pushing you away. And as them pushing you away, they're actually creating the distance so they can see themselves. So this is why you see people go through depression, or which really is deep, like the deep sea. Depression is really suppressed emotions that need to come out, or blockages that, had they not pushed you away, whatever relationship karmically, is actually to a guide to you, them facing themselves, what they've been running from their whole life, that their mother and father, through working, through their career, through being inauthentic, been running from their whole life. So now people are being forced to see themselves. I don't care what happens in the world. People are now being forced to see themselves and trying to recover those aspects of themselves, those fragmentations of themselves that they've been given, realizing that they've been given so much power into trying to be something that isn't authentic, isn't even what they love to do. And then they begin to project this on, if they do have kids, onto them. See how the loop continues until you decide to break the generational chain. So in that, these same people will come at you, because in their being inauthentic and not knowing who they are, their false illusion or narrative, or this identity, this false identity that they created, is shattered. So those things that they've been suppressing, which is connected probably to either the feminine or their woundings or their childhood woundings or traumatic experience, it all comes up and is all projected onto you, whether father, mother, anyone. See how that loop continues until you change it? So sometimes I have to realize, like, why is they coming at me like that? Why is she my mother, or somebody saying this attacking me? And in reality, hurt people hurt people. See, they've been hurting and they didn't realize it until you had to depart, until you had to realize that I have to now be there for me. And see, in that, you are guiding light. Even though they may not ever acknowledge or say you're inspiration. Some parents or guardians are so egotistical, egotistically so stuck in a narrative that they too they cannot let go of this title. It's like branded on their hair of a parent or whatever title that they feel, and it forces them into a place where some people sometimes don't even come out. And you know of some, and those that you have, it forces them to break the illusion of survival and suffering, because some people believe that that's what their life is, and it isn't. So that being said, you are exactly where you're supposed to be. It will become easy. It will become blissful. It will become more harmonious. It will become what it's supposed to be if you're willing to surrender. A lot of our mothers and fathers or people that came before us didn't have the opportunity to rest in their emotions, to sit back and bask in relaxing. And now we're getting to do it. Then we create that for our kids. So think about that. The whole world wants you to think like, oh, getting all this money, getting all this, do all this external stuff is really security. But what about emotional security? What about spiritual security? What about all these things internally that we have turned a blind eye to and realize how vital a peace of mind is, even when the world is losing their mind or in a place where they're creating their anxiety, they're creating their suffering. But you have a peace of mind, no matter where, even if you don't know where your next meal is coming, or you don't know how that bill or something is going to get paid. You have a peace of mind because it's beauty in how the flower from the seed, no one knows how that flower is going to blossom, or that tree, how beautiful it's going to be. But that's the beauty of the unknown. That's the thing that we're reconnecting to, is that it's even in unknown or not knowing, you still know that you're taken care of. You still know that you're divinely guided and protected. And so again, there are going to be more messages that I'll share with you, but just know that breathe again. Breathe, and it's okay. It's a process. It's like a birthing process. You're unlearning and relearning. You're going through the emotional birthing, the spiritual and physical. We're birthing something anew that some people never thought that would be possible. And you're a part of it. You matter. You count. You're loved. You're beautiful. You're brilliant. You're divine. No matter how anybody outside perceives you, you are here for a purpose. Peace and blessing. Shalom.